In this courseware video, we will examine the basics of keying using the Ultra Keyer tool in Fusion. We will also use an animated garbage mat to cut away unwanted parts of our foreground. Fusion provides many different tools for extracting an alpha channel from an image. The Luma Keyer tool produces alpha channels from individual color channels, as well as from virtual channels like luminance, saturation, hue, and depth. The Chroma Keyer tool is a general tool for extracting a matte using any color in the image, while the Ultra Keyer tool is specifically designed to extract mattes from blue screen or green screen footage. The Difference Keyer can even extract an alpha by comparing the differences between an image with a foreground subject and an image without the foreground. The Matte tool does not actually generate an alpha channel, but it provides many controls for manipulating existing alpha channels, as well as for providing an excellent host tool for garbage mattes created in the process of rotoscoping. All of these can be found and added to the composition from the Matte category of tools. To demonstrate basic blue screen keying, we will create a new composition, then load footage from the courseware footage folder. Specifically, load the Bison background footage and the Bison blue screen footage by dragging and dropping it into the composition from the File Explorer. Also, right-click in the flow and select Force All Tile Pictures to On. The footage we are using is NTSC-D1, or 720 by 486, so go into Preferences and ensure that the default format is set to NTSC-D1. We should also set our render range. However, our background is a looped still frame, so use the foreground and drag and drop it into the time ruler. This will automatically set the render range to 75 frames. Also change the global out to 75 to match. View the background in the left display view and the foreground in the right display view. Our background is a pleasant pastoral scene. It clearly needs livestock, which is why the foreground contains a bison in front of a blue screen. Bison are notoriously unreliable actors, so our scene also has a trainer on a ladder with a long stick to help guide the animal's attention. The goal of our tutorial is to get the bison from the foreground into the background scene, without bringing the trainer along. Auto-merge the foreground by dragging its output over the output of the background tool's loader tile, and then view the new merge in the left display view. We don't see much of the background. That's because our blue screen footage has no alpha channel. Click on the color button in the display view on the left. This toggles the display of the alpha in this view. It's pretty solidly opaque. We need to extract the blue screen and turn it into a useful alpha channel. To produce this alpha channel, we will locate the UKY or Ultra Keyer tool in the toolbar at the top of the screen, and then click and drag it into the right display view. This automatically connects the Ultra Keyer to our foreground loader, and then displays the new tool in the view. As we mentioned earlier in this video, the Ultra Keyer tool is designed specifically for blue or green screen keying. In this case, our foreground uses a blue screen, so make certain that the blue option is selected in the tool's controls. This tool is already producing a basic alpha channel, since Fusion is automatically pulling primary blue from the image. To start pulling a proper key, we need to select pixels from our blue background. Make certain that the Ultra Keyer is active in the flow, and then start selecting pixels from the blue screen by click-dragging small rectangular regions. We can grow the matte by adding additional regions to the selection. If you accidentally select too much, use Ctrl-Z for undo, or try holding down Shift while dragging to subtract pixels from the selection. You can also always click on the Reset Pre-Matte Ranges button if you want to start over. Each time you make a selection, Fusion adds it to the pre-matte range sliders you see below. It is generally best to leave these controls alone. They can be difficult to control manually. The range sliders can be animated if needed, for example, if lighting conditions on the blue screen are changing over time. Don't bother selecting from the areas not immediately next to the bison. We'll be subtracting that area away using garbage mats later in this lesson. The only area of interest to us is the area immediately surrounding the subject. Zoom in for a closer look in both display views. Make sure your composition is set to high Q or high quality using the button found in the time ruler. Since we are now examining the fringe in detail, it is important that we see the image in the best quality possible. I also tend to turn on the auto proxy mode so that it doesn't affect my ability to see small changes as I make adjustments. Finally, you may also want to turn off smooth resize using the display view toolbars. This will cause Fusion to use only nearest neighbor filters when scaling the image up. Personally, I prefer to leave this option enabled. Examine the Keyer's pre-matte size slider. Increase the pre-matte size And note how the mat is expanded by growing portions of the selection outwards. Pre-mat size is often used to close holes in semi-transparent regions of the image. We can also use pre-mat size to eliminate the really jagged edges found in the fringes of our key. Increase the size by just a small amount. Now we can use the matte separation slider to apply a pre-contrast pass to the selected color range. This has the effect of eating into the fringe that we just created. Adjust it until we have pulled away most of the softness of the bison, but not so much that we destroy the subtle hair detail that found on the edge of our bison. Some artists prefer to use the matte separation slider first, before even selecting colors from the image. They increase the separation until the majority of the blue screen disappears, and then they select only a small color range to produce the key. This is also a valid technique, but one we won't be using in this particular courseware. Lock the color picking controls so we don't inadvertently add more pixels to the range as we work. Now select the Image tab to display controls for adjusting the fringe and spill in our key. These controls don't affect the alpha channel directly. Instead, they treat the color channels found in the fringe of the image to help blend the foreground with the background. Spill is caused by the lights used to illuminate the blue screen, reflecting and backlighting the foreground subject. We can see spill around the legs of our bison. To remove the spill, we employ the spill suppression controls built into the Ultra Keyer. Change the spill method from none to burnt. Burnt is the most powerful spill suppression technique. Most often, you will use either well done or burnt to handle the spill in blue screen shots, and rare or medium for green screen shoots. You can moderate the amount of spill suppression applied by selecting a lesser method or by reducing the value of the spill suppression slider. Our alpha channel is starting to look pretty reasonable, but we still have a dark fringe around the edges of our mask. We can eliminate that by adjusting the fringe gamma slightly, which will increase the brightness of the semi-transparent pixels in our shot. The remaining controls can be used to color tint the fringe to better match the new background. Your key may or may not benefit from tinting the colors towards green in this particular case. Set the views back to fit, and then switch to the Matte tab in the Ultra Keyer's controls. These controls are used to apply a final treatment to the alpha channel generated by the color selections. We can use the Matte Blur control to apply a Gaussian blur to the alpha channel. Apply an ever so slight blur to take the remaining hard edges off of our mask so far. Use the Matte Contract and Expand control to expand or contract the semi-transparent areas of the matte. Expanding pushes the semi-transparent pixels closer to white, while contracting pulls them down towards black. The remaining controls are explained in detail in the manual. Matte threshold can be particularly useful for dealing with salt and pepper type noise that can appear when keying footage with heavy grain. Our alpha channel is starting to look pretty good around the bison, but we need to eliminate the areas around our blue screen and mask out the trainer. This is done using a garbage mask. A garbage mask is similar to an effect mask, but affects only the alpha channel. You will only find garbage matte inputs on keying tools. Change the current frame to 0, and double check that the Ultra Keyer tool is selected in the flow. Then click once on the Add a Polyline Mask button in one of the display views. This automatically adds a polygon tool to the composition connected directly to the effect mask input on the Ultra Keyer. We want to use this as a garbage matte, so instead click and drag that output and drop it over top of the gray input on the Ultra Keyer, which is used for the garbage matte. Click in the display view to create a small shape around the outline of the bison. Keep the shape pretty tight. We don't need anything more than just the area directly around the bison, especially because we're going to animate this shape later. When you close the shape, notice that the alpha channel has disappeared in the region covered by the shape. This is because if you look at the Ultra Keyer tool's controls, the current garbage matte mode is set to Make Transparent. If we were to set this to Make Solid, then the garbage matte would instead make the region encompassed by the polyline solid. What we actually want is to keep the bison and lose everything else, so select the Make Transparent button again, then select the Polyline tool and turn on the Invert checkbox to reverse the matte created by the polyline. There goes our trainer, as well as the edges of the blue screen. They won't be missed. We need to refine our matte, so zoom in around the legs, and then adjust the shape by clicking to Insert Points, and by dragging points to reposition them in the composition. Give me a moment to finish this up. That should about do it. There we go. Now put a little bit of soft edge on there just to blend those in a little bit better with the ground. We need to apply a bit of animation to the polyline mat to accommodate the movement of the animal's head. So change frames to 40, which is where the head sort of stops moving. It might be useful if we change the display view from alpha back to color by clicking on the toolbar button, and then view the loader before our Ultra Keyer tool so that we can see the elements that we're trying to mask out. Our mask needs a little more shape, so we'll just pull out to the side here, and then pull out this point so that our bison is now properly covered, and then hit play. And this will move through the frames, and we can see the animation of our points and make sure that there's no point where the bison's nose or face actually crosses into our mask. Congratulations! Our quiet, peaceful field is now populated with giant bison. One final note in conclusion. You could have easily applied the garbage mat using a mat control tool instead of applying it directly to the keyer. Garbage mats applied to mat control tools are often used to rotoscope shapes that cannot be keyed using conventional means. That concludes our courseware video for the basics.